Right, I'd like to say good morning and welcome to you all. I am Camilla Sherwin and I joined the II team about 3 months ago, and I'm delighted to be hosting this webinar this morning. The webinar is being recorded and it will go up on the IIE YouTube channel after the event. Just to run through the format quickly, if you have any questions throughout the presentation, please put them in the Q&A box. And we will go through them at the end of Alice's presentation. So with that, let me commence. I think that it is now well understood that if businesses and organisations are to do good, they need to act in consideration of the planet, of those people they share it with, as well as seeking profit or financial security. Achieving all of these aims has been difficult when past emphasis has been so much on the latter. But there is an increasing realization that organizations must do so if we are to have a more stable climate and a more socially equitable world. At IIE, we often talk more about the impact on the environment, but through the projects element of the award, we never forget the importance of encouraging members to consider how businesses and organizations can have a positive social impact. And hence why we asked Alice Troiano to speak to us today. Some of you may recognize Alice. She spoke to us at last year's IIE Awards on the topic of Is Your Business Forward-Looking? For those who don't know her, Alice is a purpose-driven entrepreneur striving for a world where social impact and sustainability are no longer up for debate. She's co-founder and CEO of Prosperah, a multi-award-winning impact startup which aims to empower companies to unleash the potential of the UN's Sustainable Development Goals and make a difference for people, the planet, and their business. She holds a master's degree from the London School of Economics and Political Science, and where she focused on the role that different organisations can play in sustainable development. So with no further ado, I'd like to introduce Alice. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Camilla. That was a very flattering introduction.
Oh, well deserved.
Thanks. Okay. Welcome, everyone, and thank you so much for being here. So the topic of today's discussion will be around how businesses can have a positive social impact. Especially what we'll be looking at is a focus on the value that aligning your purpose to the UN Sustainable Development Goals can have for your business. So just to give you a bit of content of the topics that we will cover today, we'll have a refresher of why it really matters today to be a responsible business. We will look at what the SDGs actually are all about and why your business should care about the SDGs. We will then look into practical steps that you can do in your own time to begin your own purpose-driven journey. And finally, we will look at 2 case studies from 2 very different companies and how they have themselves aligned their business journey to the SDGs. So just to refresh our minds about what sustainability actually does, well, the good news is that sustainability isn't just good for the planet or for people in case of social impact, but it's actually good for business too. And let's look at why. 81% of millennials today expect companies to make a public commitment to do good. And at the same time, 9 in 10 millennials would switch brands to one associated with a cause. Basically, what this means is that out of 10 people that come across your business, 9 are more likely to choose a competitors if you're not associating your business with a positive cause. And that is a really, really high number that is telling us where business is headed. And finally, it's not just about customers, but it's actually also about the people that you're able to attract to your business. 82% of young millennials consider social responsibility and sustainability activities before deciding whether they want to come and work for your company. So the fact that you're here, it's telling us that it's really good that you're thinking about these things, because we know where the future of business is going and we know where people will want to work. So generally, to be able to achieve these benefits, which is having more customers, having a competitive advantage, as well as attracting talent to your business, it's possible if we follow the right steps. So the steps that we usually should follow are 3. Plan your impact, measure your impact, and share your impact. Now, this sounds very complicated in theory, but actually it can become very easy. Why and how? There is a framework that was invented exactly to make this process very, very easy and very, very accessible. And the framework is the UN Sustainable Development Goals, which is what we're going to look today. So hopefully with today's webinar, you will leave the presentation by thinking, okay, actually my business can approach this framework in a very easy and accessible way for what works for you and your own context. So what are the SDGs, in fact? They were developed in 2015 by the United Nations, but this was the result of a massive consultation that involved governments, business leaders, NGOs, civil society. It was a huge exercise where these people came together and said, okay, what are the issues, the main issues that are facing society today? And they came up with these 17 main goals. And we have very different issues covering people, so no poverty, no hunger, good health and well-being, but also the planet. We have a climate action goal. We have responsible consumption and production goal, prosperity goal, so more about the economy, like for example, number 8, which is about decent work in economic growth, number 9, which is about innovation. So it's really about everything that's happening in society today. And the challenge is saying, okay, now we need to act and do something about these issues. In fact, the SDGs are defined as the blueprint to achieve a better and more sustainable future for all. And while they were created in 2015, it's actually since 2020 that they've been gaining a lot of momentum. People started to talk about them. Businesses and organizations started to align their framework to the SDGs. And actually, it's really interesting. When I started the call with Camilla this morning, she showed me a letter that she got from a public agency, and they had the logo of the UN Sustainable Development Goals at the bottom saying how they are supporting the SDGs. So it's really becoming part of our culture. And in fact, 2020 to 2030, it's called the Decade of Action. It's basically a way of saying to business leader, to organizations leader, to governments, it's time to act and we need to do it together. So why is it that your business should actually care about these SDGs? Well, we're going to talk today about 3 main reasons why. The first one is that the SDGs can make sustainability and social impact part of your core business purpose. The second one is because the SDGs can make your impact more measurable and part of a bigger picture. And finally, the SDGs can make your impact more engaging for your employees, for your customer, and for all your stakeholders. And we'll look at each of them separately now. So first of all, the SDGs can make sustainability part of your core business purpose. Now, what do I mean by that? When I say sustainability, I mean social impact as well as environmental impact, anything that you're doing around sustainability. In the past, sustainability used to be considered as something that was part of your business or a part of your business, but it wasn't your business itself. So, there are businesses that are doing their own core operations, and on the side, they have a sustainability agenda. They're engaging with charities, they're doing some volunteering, they're reducing their carbon emissions, different kind of activities that you can do. Now, the mindset is actually shifting now from businesses that do sustainability to businesses that are defined as being purpose-driven. What do I mean by purpose-driven? Is that actually sustainability isn't just a part of your business, but is actually the positive impact that you can generate for society, for your communities, for the planet, while doing what you do in a positive way. And that's a purpose-driven business. So I really like the definition of purpose in English, which is the reason for which something exists or it's done. Basically, it's a way of saying, why is your business doing what it does? What is the purpose of your business? And how can we make that a positive purpose that isn't just for your business, i.e. making profit, but also generates positive value for your stakeholders? And it doesn't have to be a brainstorming exercise about all the possible activities that one can do on social impact or sustainability, but it's actually really thinking about your core mission, and now that alone can have a positive impact. So for example, here we're looking at a recruitment company, and their purpose could be to make sure that the right candidates are placed in the right companies, so that companies and candidates find each other basically. And guess what? That alone is already impacting 3 different SDGs. It's impacting number 4, quality education, that has a section specifically about helping young people into employment. It's impacting number 8, economic growth, because obviously you're helping customers, clients, companies find talent and therefore grow the economy. And finally, it's impacting number 10, which is reducing inequalities, because you're making sure that different people have equal access to employment. So even if you weren't doing anything, and obviously that's not the case if you're here, by doing what you're doing through your mission, you can have a positive social impact on education, on the economy, on reducing inequalities. And that is a really good news, because it means that actually the SDGs make sustainability really easy to access and really easy to talk about. Now, the SDGs at the same time, they can also make your impact more measurable. Now, let's take one example. Imagine spending £5,000 in online business ads, in online ads for your business. That's like pure marketing. Let's forget about sustainability and social impact for a second. If you're doing that kind of investment, you will be asking yourself some questions like, how many people did I reach with this ad? How much revenue did I generate with this investment? Was it worth to invest this £5,000? Now, if we apply that same methodology to marketing, why not applying it to social impact as well? Often, however, the case is that we go on a company's website, and what we see is we've given 5K to this amazing charity. And that's all you see, which is great. The fact that you've done it is amazing. But if you're not telling me that you're measuring it, how do you even know if that intervention is having an impact? How do you know if that 5K you have invested into a charity is making a difference for the people that the charity is actually serving? How many people has that investment impacted? What was the outcome of your support, of your intervention? We need to be asking these very specific questions when donating to charity, when having social impact, when implementing social impact activities, as well as environmental activities, which I'm sure you're very familiar with. So the challenge here is understanding, okay, we need to measure it. How do we do it? Well, the good news again is that the SDGs can actually make that process of measuring your social impact very, very easy, or at least they can make it more accessible, because they can seem very vague at the beginning. So you have no poverty. Right, no poverty can encompass a lot. Quality education, again, is a very broad goal, but actually underneath the SDGs, there are 169 more specific targets and many more indicators that can help you say, okay, no poverty is a broad goal, but actually let me identify if underneath no poverty, there is something that I'm doing already or that I can do that has an impact against this goal. So by breaking those down and looking at the targets, you can actually realize that many of the activities that you are already doing today, like volunteering with your employees or donating to charity, fundraising for a charity, are already impacting quite a few of these goals. So it's something that it's already part of who you are, of your purpose that we talked about before. And the other really interesting thing about impact is that with the SDGs, you're not just measuring your own impact, but suddenly it becomes part of a much bigger picture. Because realistically, what a small business or even a large business can do, or an organization can do, it's small scale, right? We want to have an intervention that impacts our local community, or that in any case we can actually be able to participate in. Imagine being a volunteering program. We want to be able to participate in that program hands-on. The good news is that if we're saying, I'm volunteering for a school and helping kids understand more about climate change, okay? In that case, you're impacting quality education, but also the more environmental goals. And the good news is that actually while you're doing that, other businesses, other universities, other charities, the government, other institutions are saying, we are also impacting goal number 4, which is quality education. So your small scale impact suddenly becomes maximized by becoming part of this network of people and organizations that are saying, we can have a positive impact on people. We can make sure that our society thrives by doing what we do and by taking part in social impact and environmental activities that generate value for our stakeholders. So the bigger picture becomes massive, because it's not just you doing an activity, it's not just you volunteering for that local school, it's actually you doing that, and at the same time making a global impact, something that has a global resonance, which become really, really massive. At the same time, while it's really important to measure your impact, it's also really important to make sure that that impact is engaging. It has to be engaging for our employees, for our customers, for anyone that comes across our business, really. So there's two cases here that I'd like to have a look at with you today. We have company one, case one, who's a company, we'll assume it's a company that does a lot of social responsibility activities. They engage with charities, they reduce their carbon emissions, so they care about their employees. So they're very committed to sustainability and social impact. And all their website says is blank. It's nothing. They don't say anything about it. They're not even talking about it. People don't know. They're doing so much and no one knows they're even doing it, which is, I mean, the fact that you're doing it alone is really good, but people want to know about it. People want to know that you are a responsible business, that you care about this thing. So why would you want to keep it for yourself? That's case one. Case two is also very interesting. So this is a company that, again, they do a lot of social responsibility activities. They engage with charities. They reduce their carbon emissions. Sorry, there's a mistake there, carbon emissions. They care about their employees. And what their website says is, download our 50+ pages sustainability report with no images, no emotions, but lots of tables, charts, numbers that no one will ever understand. So we've got like the two opposite here. There is one that is not saying anything, and then there's the other one that is measuring a lot of their activities, but they're doing it in a very, if I can, boring way. Boring for whom? Maybe for your sustainability colleagues that come on your website and want to know more about you. That is very clear. But for a talent, for a person that wants to come and work for your company, they're not going to want to read 50 pages report just with charts and number. They will want you to show them that you can actually engage them in this kind of activities. The good news is, once again, that the SDGs can get us there, because the SDGs, as a matter of fact, were designed to be an engaging ways of communicating your impact and making sure that your employees can be engaged in your impact, your customers can be engaged in your impact, etc. I'll tell you a story that really fascinates me. So when the United Nations in 2015 developed the UN SDGs, they actually developed it as a spreadsheet. It was a spreadsheet, very boring, with 17 goals, 169 targets, and many more indicators. And no one was going to engage with it. Yeah, maybe governments, government executives or CEOs of global companies were going to look at it and say, okay, this is how we can actually do it. But there was no way common people like us would have been, fascinated or engaged by the goals. So I'm pretty sure you know who, or if you don't, no problem. Richard Curtis is quite a big deal in the film industry. So what he did one day, he looked at this spreadsheet. He was very, very much into sustainable development. He looked at this spreadsheet and he said, oh, wow, what they're talking about is actually really interesting. It's just that they're doing it in a very boring way. So what we'll do, we'll actually make it fun. And what he did was calling a friend of his. It was a Swedish designer called Jakob Troiano. And what they did together, they sat down in this room for like a few days, and they came up with this table that you see here. So basically they took a spreadsheet and they turned it into icons and numbers and words that were really, really engaging for people. And then what they did was, let's go back to the UN and show them what we've done. And when the UN saw this, they were like, oh my God, this is amazing. We'll actually take it. Okay, can we use it, please? So this is just to say that the SDGs were designed to make your activities more engaging, to make sure that it could be possible to engage people on a daily basis, on an everyday level, on this kind of activities. And it is working. These are 3 examples that I really like to show us how people in their everyday life are coming across the goals in many different ways. So the first example is London, and it's Marylebone Station. I don't know if you had the luck to be there. I actually was. At some point I was walking in the station and I realized I was stepping on SDGs. Now I knew about the goals, and that was really funny because, I wanted to know more, like what's happening here. And it turns out that BNP Paribas, who has their HQ right in front of the station, to communicate their activities to the community, they decided to put these tiles on the floor with all the SDGs they were having an impact on. So that basically people were stepping on it and they were forced to read it, because, you know, when we're walking, often we're looking on the floor. The second example is Tokyo. These were called SDG trains, and it was an initiative by the local government to say, we want people to know that we are a responsible city. So what's the one thing that everyone will be stuck in for a long time? Well, especially at busy times, it's the tube, it's trains, right? So they put all these SDGs on the train to communicate how the city was having a positive impact on their citizens, on their residents as well. And then the third example is Rome. This is one of the busiest metro stations in Rome, and they basically, a local company in partnership with the local government decided to just project this image of the SDGs, so just the people could start to understand what these goals were all about. Because again, the icons themselves make it fun for impact to be talked about. People want to read it. You see all these colorful pictures and you're like, oh my God, what is this company doing? Now, imagine having that on your website, right? One thing is saying we're engaging with charities, or we've donated 5K to charity. Another thing is having an icon of the SDGs, and then next to it, a picture of your employees volunteering for the charity, and then some number and some stats of the impact you're tracking. You make me want to know more about what you're doing. You make me want to read about what you're doing. And the SDGs can really, really help in that. Now, we've seen why it is important for your business to care about the goals. What I would like to do now is give you some practical steps so that you can start to think about your own purpose journey. When I say purpose, remember, we're not talking about sustainability in a box. We're trying to make sure that by thinking about your company's mission, you can actually say we're having a positive purpose on people and the planet as well. So first of all, this is an exercise that you can do in your own time. We're going to go through the three steps together. And then if you have any questions, you can obviously drop them in the chat. So step one, just sit down, either by yourself, if you're a solo director, or with your team, and try to make a list of all your activities that have a positive impact. Now, for what we're talking about today, you can concentrate on the social impact, but you can also, you're part of an amazing network of people that really care about the environment, which is investors in the environment. So try to put the activities that you're doing on the environmental side as well, because you'll find goals that actually are about the environment as well. So make a list of all these activities. Make sure that when you do this, you don't forget to include the more obvious kind of impacts, which is what you already do. What do you do as a company? Like your core operations, what do you do as a company that has a positive impact on people? Is it just by caring about your employees? How are you doing that? That's already having a positive impact on them. Is it, again, we saw the recruitment company example. How is your mission having a positive impact on people or the planet? As part of this step one, what I would like you to do is, once you've identified these activities, try to associate. You can start with like a limited number, or you can go with them all. It's up to you. Try to associate each activity to at least one SDG. So we're volunteering every 3 months for a local charity. Okay, what is the local charity? What do they do? What's their impact? Is it they're helping young people into education? Amazing. Education is a trigger word. You're going to go and identify number 4, quality education, as a goal you're impacting there. Now, what else is a volunteering activity doing? It's making your employees happier. Trigger word, again, happier, good health and well-being. So you can immediately spot number 3 as well. Try to associate the SDGs to at least one activity. Obviously, you will soon realize that one activity can actually impact more SDGs. But if you start with one, that is already really, really good. Once you've identified all the SDGs that relate to each of the activities you've listed, I would like for you to check the ones that are more recurring. What are the most recurring SDGs in your list? Because these ones are the ones you want to really put down somewhere, because are the ones that are more likely to be your core priorities. Before, however, deciding on your core priorities, you want to do one very important step. Now, I like to spend a minute or so on this slide. Validating your findings with your stakeholders. First of all, who are our stakeholders? that is really up to you. Generally, we tend to divide stakeholders into two categories. Category number one is internal stakeholders, and that would be employees. Employees are the most important category of stakeholders when we want to talk about social impact and sustainability. The second ones are external stakeholders, where we have customers, we have partners, we have suppliers, we have local charities, different voices that are around our business and have an impact on us, or we have an impact on them. Now, what you can do here is, once you've identified your priorities, your most recurring SDGs in step number one, I would like for you to go on to step number two and asking your stakeholders, what is it that they value the most? Because it's great that you sit down with your team, or by yourself, your co-director, your business partner, etc., and talk about your own priorities. But we also want to know, what is it that our employees really care about? What is it that our customers really care about? What are their own priorities? The most important thing here is that, especially now that we're all working from home and that teams are, all over the place, we're not in one place all the time together, we need to make sure that we keep our employees on board with our responsible business activities. And the single most important way to do that is by making sure that they're part of the decision-making process, that they're being heard of, that their values and their opinions are listened to in terms of what can be done around social impact and sustainability. So make sure that you go and ask your stakeholders what they value the most. And then 2B is to cross-reference your own priorities, which is the result of this exercise. So the most recurring SDGs and the list of activities, I would like for you to cross-reference that with the priorities of your stakeholders, of your employees, of your partners, of your customer. So how do the two literally come together? Where are the meeting points between the business priorities and the stakeholders' priorities? And what you'll do then is basically pick the ones that are present in both groups. You always want to make sure that before going with a new charity or before engaging your employees in a volunteering opportunity, you always want to make sure that this is something your employees want to do as well. Because otherwise, it's going to be very difficult to tell them, okay, I am the founder of a business and I've decided that now my, 12 or 50 or 100 employees will go and volunteer for this charity. Now, I would feel like, okay, oh, well, right, I'll do it because my boss is asking me to. But what's behind that is that actually I won't really feel that I was part of that decision. If you've asked me, when you come to me and say, guys, let's go and volunteer for this amazing charity, people will love it because they were part of deciding which charities to volunteer for, how to do it, which activities to engage with. So make sure that you validate your answers with your stakeholders, and then you cross-reference the priorities of the business with the priorities of the stakeholders, and only choose the activities and associated SDGs that are actually relevant to both groups. And then step 3, which is not really a step, it's more of a suggestion, is please do not overdo it. Less is more in this case. So this is 2 examples again. We have company A, you go on their website and they say, SDGs we're addressing. And you're like, oh, that's literally all of them. Okay, that's interesting. How are you even doing that? You're like a 50 people company. How are you achieving so much? That's amazing. And then when you actually look at it, their sustainability planning and social impact activities are very ad hoc. It's not strategic at all, and their impact is not measured and scattered. So that's not the ideal case. We don't want to end up there because it's going to be really difficult to track what we're actually doing and the impact that we're actually making. Now, company B is really good because what they're saying is, well, we understand that as a small business or as a large business as well, we don't have the capacity to achieve everything. So we've selected our key priorities, hopefully following the cross-referencing methodology between what matters to us and what matters to the stakeholders. And these are the 5 SDGs that we think we're addressing. So you have no poverty, quality education, gender equality, decent work and economic growth, and climate action. So you have a mixture of social impact and environmental impact goals. Now here, the sustainability planning is much easier because there is a few activities that they can do. So it's clear and feasible what they can achieve. And in fact, their impact becomes tangible and measurable. It's something that they know they can do. You know, their planning is feasible and therefore their impact then becomes measurable and tangible. So when you do this process, just remember that it's important to make, I really like the kind of original title of this, which is making CSR activities work for you. Aligning to the SDGs or doing CSR, social impact, environmental activities, doesn't mean that you have to be doing everything. What is important is that you identify the key things where you can actually make a positive impact, the key issues that are relevant to your employees, the key issues that are important to you as a business, and you focus on those. You need to be the best on those. You don't need to be, partially good on everything. You can be really amazing on the things that you're already doing and that you're already amazing on. So less is more. Now, this is 2 case studies that I would like to have a look at. I'm just gonna have a sip of water. Okay, very different companies. Case study number 1 is a very small company. This is a company of 2 people, in fact. They were funded about 6 months ago. So in the middle of lockdown, they decided to start this company. It's an amazing company. And the 2 founders, basically, they wanted to understand from the beginning of their business journey, how they could be a positive company for people and the planet. Basically, they wanted to start their journey by saying, we want to be a purpose-driven company from the start, which is really good because it's much easier to do it at the beginning of your journey. So what they did, this is the work we've done together with them. We've engaged a total of 24 stakeholders. They had no employees. So in this case, there weren't any employees involved with it. We've engaged, it's a recruitment company. So we've engaged their candidates, we've engaged their clients, we've engaged their suppliers, their charity, existing charity partners, a number of stakeholders. And we've put that on a priority, what we call a priority matrix, which is the one you see here. And you see the business priorities at the bottom, and then the stakeholder priority on the left side. And then all these icons that you see here, I hope you've recognized them. These are the SDGs that we've basically spread on the priority matrix, which has been split in 3. Now you have very high priorities in the top right section, you have high priority in the middle, and you have moderate priorities at the bottom. What that means is that basically we're considering very high priority, the ones that are relevant to both the business and the stakeholders. We're considering high priorities, the one that are less relevant to both groups, and then moderate priorities, the one that haven't really matched both groups. So the exercise that we saw at the beginning, when you cross-reference the data, now I'm not saying that you have to do a complex priority matrix, just look at the ones that really can be found in one group and the other, which hopefully are going to be the ones that can be placed in the very high box, even without doing the whole priority matrix. The result was that we identified 5 priority SDGs and 10 targets, which are the ones underneath the SDGs, the more specific one. So what they could say now was, well, as a company, by doing what we do, we can be a purpose-driven company, having an impact on quality education, on economic growth, on responsible consumption and production, and on life below water, and on gender equality. So already, by doing what they're doing, their current activities, their mission, their future potential activities, they're saying, this is the direction that we're going in. We know what we'll be focusing on, and this is how we're going to do it. Second example is a large company. We focused on the EMEA, in the EMEA kind of branch of the company, which is 5,000 employees. So it's very opposite to the one we've just seen. But the process was very similar. It was actually identical. Just obviously, instead of engaging 24 stakeholders, we've engaged 162 here. And their objective was slightly different. Obviously, this wasn't a newly founded company. It was an established company. And what they wanted to know is understand which SDGs should be adopted in their strategy. Because their starting point was, we already have a lot of activities that we're doing on social responsibility, corporate citizenship, social impact, environment. There was already a lot that they were doing. And they just wanted to understand how all these activities could fit into the SDGs agenda so that they could shape a new, clearer, and more tangible direction for their social impact activities. We've engaged 162 stakeholders. And again, the results were 5 priority SDGs and 12 targets that we are able to identify. And as you can see, the process is exactly the same, merging business priorities with stakeholder priorities and looking at the ones that are more likely to be top of mind for both groups. Now, I want you to remember that if it sounds too overwhelming, actually you should really believe in yourself. The single fact that you're here attending this webinar, that you're part of the Investors in the Environment network, it means that you care and that your business is amazing and that you can do this. I don't want you to feel overwhelmed by what we've looked at today, but actually I want you to feel empowered by it. I want you to take a moment to do this exercise in your own time and actually think, okay, I care about these issues, I care about these activities, and I want to make sure that I can do it in the best possible way, because it is possible. Just remember that your customers, your employees, your partners, they're all looking for evidence about your sustainability and social impact commitment. The time to act is now, and it's become a business decision. We've seen it at the beginning, millennials, which are, actually we should be talking about Gen Z now as well, because they're becoming consumers, they're becoming the talent that we want to acquire, and the stats there are even higher. So if you want to be, last year I talked about forward-looking businesses. If you want to be a forward-looking and forward-thinking business, you need to act now and start to provide evidence about what you're doing on social impact and sustainability. If you're among the ones that on the website, they have the blank page or they have nothing, it's time to start communicating the good that you're doing. Because first of all, people want to know about it. Second of all, it is a business decision to show them what you're doing. If you are on the other side where you're just like about numbers and stats and charts, that is great. The fact that you're monitoring that is amazing. Let's make sure that we can communicate that in a more engaging way so that people feel actually they can access what you're talking about, they feel included in it. And also just for your employees that participate in your activities, they feel that actually, there is a few issues that we're focusing on. We're going in that direction together. And that is how we're becoming a purpose-driven company. And then finally, of course, feel free to reach out to us and or to me, we can support you in that journey. We can look at how your purpose can be aligned to the SDGs. We can engage your key stakeholders to make sure that your core priorities are shared, and we can identify impact opportunities that really work for your business and are aligned to your purpose. I like to end with this sentence because it's really powerful. Purpose is the reason for which something is done or created. It's time to stop for a minute and think about why your business was founded, why your business does what it's doing, and it's time to find out what your purpose really is. So let's find out. Thank you.
Brilliant. Thank you, Alice. That was fascinating and lots of really good points there, which so I'm sure it's been of great benefit to everyone. So those listening, as I mentioned at the beginning, if you want to put any questions in the Q&A box, then please do put them in there and I will ask them to Alice. Had a congratulations from one of the audience, Alice, saying really easy to understand.
Thank you very much.
So thank you. There is one question which has come up, which actually was submitted prior to the event, so I'm just going to read it. As part of IIE, we, member organisations, are required to undertake environmental, social or wellbeing projects which are over and above the resource measuring and monitoring, action planning and communications work to achieve accreditation. We are a small company and we're struggling for ideas about work/team-based projects we might do now, as we are mainly based out of the office. Not all of our colleagues are switched on to the CSR agenda. They all live quite far apart. But we want to do something that is meaningful, builds the team, and is not just a tick box ticking exercise. Do you have any examples of what other businesses in similar situations, i.e. all working from home, have done?
That is a very good question. I really picked up when you said not all colleagues are switched on the CSR agenda. That is a very, very interesting point. Basically, it goes back to what we were saying about engaging them from early on. Before going to your remote working employees and suggesting an activity, we need to make sure that they're actually on board with the overall agenda that we have on social responsibility, because otherwise they will never feel they're actually part of it. They will never be excited about it. So my advice would be, as a first step, try to include them in the decision making. So before suggesting an activity, try to ask them, what is it that they care about? What do they value as people and as employees? What is it that they would like for the business to be doing in terms of social responsibility? So onboard them in the thinking about social responsibility and sustainability, and then you can start to think about activities. Now, in practical terms, I've seen many businesses switch to virtual remote volunteering activities when it's not possible to do it in person. The good thing about those is that basically you can focus on what we call skill sharing or skill-based volunteering, instead of doing an activity that is just, I mean, there is a lot of value in those as well, but instead of doing an activity that, for instance, is painting a school or gardening at school or something like that, why don't you try to focus on what your employees are really good at? You tell them that because, you know, you can tell them, oh, wow, you're an accountant, you're really good at what you're doing. Why don't we make sure that, you know, people, beneficiaries of these charities, have access to the financial know-how that they might lack at the moment? So basically, you're triggering their main job, which is hopefully what excites them, and you're telling them, go and share it for a good cause. So that's what we call skills-based volunteering. And it's actually a very powerful thing. Either it can be done online, so you can do some, for instance, we've had some businesses doing mentoring opportunities online for other companies. I myself was doing some mentoring for young entrepreneurs from disadvantaged background. And it's a very, very powerful thing because I was sharing my own skills. You know, I wasn't doing some other kind of volunteering. I was sharing what I do every day, just pro bono. And that is really powerful. And it usually engages people in a really powerful way.
Okay, brilliant. Thank you very much for that. I've had another question, which is, how do we get started?
Okay,
doing this?
That's a good question. So what I would suggest is, first of all, really important, you can try to sit down and follow the steps that we've looked at. What I will do, I forgot to mention this, what I will do for the people attending live today, we will share, I think Camilla will drop in the chat a link to a questionnaire. It's a 2-question questionnaire. What you can do, basically, if you fill that in, I will send you tailored tips on how you can get started on this based on your starting point. So basically, you will receive tailored tips on what you can actually do to kick this off based on your starting point. So to know your starting point, just fill in the questionnaire so we know where you're actually at the moment. And then I can share some tailored tips for you to get started based on you know, where you're at today.
Okay, brilliant. I'm just trying to pick up the link to share it.
Perfect.
Back here. Right, there is the link. I hope. Brilliant. Oh,
yeah.
So great, excellent. People can do that.
Cool.
Now, and then one other question, which is with the logo, if we did go through the whole process of sort of, you know, that you've explained, can you just use the logo, or how do you get access to all the artwork? And is it, you know, how do you use the logo? Are you allowed to do that?
Which logo?
The SDG logo.
Oh, the SDGs logo. So yes, you can use the SDGs logo as long as it's not for commercial purposes. So if it's for commercial purposes, it needs to have a lot of UN communications and agreement with them. But in this case, it's for positive pro bono impact activities. So we're not saying we're not making money out of the SDGs. We're actually saying we're making a positive impact through the SDGs. So yes, they can be used. I mean, if you go on many companies, you will see on their sustainability page, they will have all the different icons saying, or on their sustainability report, all the different icons saying how they're impacting the goals. So yes, and note on the logo, actually, it's important not to use the one with the UN logo. So if you look at this one, if you see this one doesn't have any UN logo in it. So that's the one that can be used. There is one that has, instead of this wheel here, it has the UN logo. Just make sure you don't use that one, because that one is just for UN bodies. But other than that, it's completely fine.
Okay, so I guess to add to that, if anybody does have any needs to clarify that, then they could contact Alice.
Yes, absolutely.
To make sure that they're doing the right thing. Okay, so that actually concludes the questions. So I would like to thank Alice. Certainly it was a fascinating thing. I'm amazed to hear about Richard Curtis's sort of I can't think, involvement in drawing together those logos. That was very interesting. And I think what you said about communicating what you're doing is actually quite relevant for IIE members, is that you sometimes have to search on a website to find any information at all about how they're involved in the IIE scheme. And I think it is something that's increasingly looked at and is something that people should be, organizations should be proud of, and promoting a little bit more about what they're doing, rather than just saying we're a member of the IIE scheme. Or so I think that's a really good sort of lesson for us all to learn. And obviously it looked like there was a lot to do there, but those little steps, or even using the SDGs as a kind of away day type topic discussion, just to get people focused on what they are, an introduction to what they are, with a longer term objective of incorporating them into how you're doing your business, is a great idea. So no, it's absolutely brilliant to hear from.
Okay, sorry.
Go on.
No, I was just going to say, it was interesting. I have done an exercise with this similar exercise with another group of people, and we did this list of activities and associating the SDGs, etc. And one person then at the end of the exercise said, "Oh, actually, I thought I wasn't impacting any of these SDGs. When I did the activity, actually, I realized how many I can actually say I'm having an impact on, and how much, I'm already doing this stuff. It's not something that have to come up anew. It's something that I'm already doing." So it's very easy and accessible, and I would encourage you all to really have a think about it. If you'd like to have a chat, I'm going to post my email address in the chat, and we can have a very, very informal chat as well about it.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, Alice. That was a really great webinar.